everyone who is trickling in. Thanks so much for joining us today, and happy Tuesday. Kyle, don't laugh at me. Don't laugh at me. I need to hear what you're asking for Christmas. What are you asking Santa for Christmas this year?
I asked for coffee.
Oh, nice.
I think
I am
so.
asking for someone to rake the leaves in my yard.
Got it. Well, so we've already been doing Christmas in our. My wife started a long time ago, 12 days of Christmas, which is 12 days of present for the main event. And they don't have to be big presents. Sometimes they're little teeny itty bitty ones, but our girls get to open up presents leading up to present day. And I realize it's not all about presents, but this is our family.
Oh, I love that though. That's a special tradition. Where'd you come up with it?
I don't know. She's a smart lady.
Who knows? She sounds very lovely. We've got quite the crowd here today, guys. We are so excited to be joining or be joined again by Kyle Hendrickson to talk more secure compliance. So I will give maybe one more minute before we dive on into it to let a few stragglers in. But in the meantime, we will hang out. I had a very exciting weekend. I went to New York City for the first time.
And was there something special that you did that you will uh, absolutely do again?
I ate a hot dog from a street vendor, and I will do that again. I
I'm a
feel like
big
that's
fan
a
of
must.
eating food off the side of the street.
I wouldn't do it anywhere else, but it felt appropriate for the ambiance. I saw a question come in while we're talking. Yes, there will be a replay link sent out after the call if you have to drop off. So thank you so much for asking that, Thomas. All right, guys, I am going to get us going here. Let me share my screen and then let me know when you can see it. It is giving me a hard time. Give me 1 second.
I am confident in your skills, Claudia.
Well, I wouldn't be that confident. You never know.
Hot dog cart equals the umbrella club. See, I don't know these things. I'm here to learn too.
The umbrella club. Oh gosh,
And
did I
post
sign
it in
myself
chat.
up for something that I shouldn't have?
So I haven't had New York street food, but I've had San Diego street food and lots of little towns in between.
San Diego street food. I don't think I've ever had that before.
Yeah, downtown, district, street vendors.
Well, it is not giving me the option to share over here as a host. Can you pull up the PowerPoint by any chance? Sorry for the delay, folks.
Yeah, no problem. Let
Wait,
me,
I lied. I found it. We're good and we're rocking and rolling. How does that look?
um, I am seeing a black screen. There we go. We got it.
Perfect. All right, thank you guys very much. Umbrella Club was considered a swanky place for lunch back in the 80s. Okay, so I am hip with the trends. I'm glad to hear it. Thomas, I need you to just message me one off and we'll gab about the Umbrella Club back in the 80s, and you'll give me all the insider tips on where to go next time I go. But that is for another conversation, guys. Thank you all so much for joining today. As always, I am Claudia. I'm going to be the host of the webinar, and we have the fabulous, illustrious Kyle Hendrickson here to talk secure compliance today. So diving on into it, we're talking how firms stay SEC ready and cyber strong. Oh, that's a tongue twister. All year round, right? It's not enough to just have the tool in place, but we have to execute it continually. So let's dive on in. As discussed, here are your fabulous leading hosts for the day. I love these headshots. I wish I looked like that in real life, right? What we're going to start off with today, guys, is everyday security threats. What you're going to face on that day-to-day basis. Your annual compliance must-haves, what is in your pocketbook of requirements. Practical tips for ongoing readiness. I think this is going to be a huge hit with our folks here today. Kyle's got a wealth of knowledge. If you're first now joining in with us, he has been doing cyber security for financial institutions for what is it, Kyle? Well over 20 years now.
Yeah, it's a long, long time.
Expanding beyond the checklist, so really taking a deeper dive rather than just that checklist you have on your sticky note, and a quick win compliance checklist giveaway. So let us jump into it. Guys, where do you see the biggest gap between what your firm has in place today and what you think regulators or clients expect? I'm really curious before we get into more of the what should I say, more of the meat and potatoes of this to get a really good starting point of what we're looking for.
I
All
like
right.
setting expectations and understanding where we're starting in our journey from the
Mhm.
participants.
Oops, I sent the wrong one out. Go ahead and see that poll pop up on your screen, everybody, and let me know what you think. We'll leave it open for a minute or so.
Buddy, you have all kinds of grace from me because we are the week leading up to Christmas here. And for those who are watching the recording next week, happy Christmas, I guess. Um, but I feel like it's a win, us both being on time, showing up today, and we get to meet and talk to a bunch of really nice people.
You know what? Amen to that. I appreciate that. And all of the small technical difficulties that I run into along the way. Thanks, guys, for answering. Just a couple of you left that have not, but some really interesting questions coming in. Right, Kyle? I'm curious what you see the biggest gap is normally between what a firm has in place and what you think regulators expect. But hold that answer because we'll wait for your take on everything.
Thing on both sides. So I see both having been in their shoes, but also being on the side of the reviewer or the auditor side of things. The what's in place doesn't always match what we think is in place. And I think that's for me one of the big things that's going on. So I think that if I had to do it, I think I'd pick the very first one, cybersecurity controls and day-to-day security operations, making sure that that actually lines up with what's actually in place.
Interesting. All right, guys, I am ending the poll. And Kyle, it looks like we've got a lot of folks who aren't really quite sure. You'll notice that about 42% of our folks here were really unsure about what the biggest gap was, but then followed by a close second, documentation and a written policy. So I'm sure we'll get into this as well. WISP, incident response, vendor management, etc.
I think we're going to get into it. I think that aligns very closely with my controls comment.
Fantastic. So I'm sure everyone is tired of hearing me yap. Let's talk everyday security threats. What do you see in this slide, and what do you see in the day-to-day of you working in this industry?
Yeah, so most of the incidents that we're responding to that we are observing as a provider, and then the feedback that we get through our partnerships with places like FSISAC, the information sharing site for financial services, and then other vendor partners that we have, really it's externally driven the threat. While there certainly is the insider threat, and we can talk about that after this, but the external threat is really the largest threat landscape type item that we're dealing with in defending firms. Email certainly is a very large portion of that. And then I would also add in drive-by downloads, but also unsecured cloud applications or unsecured cloud APIs. So ways of manipulating those systems that aren't properly secured. And to note, those cloud-based systems to be poked at all times, 24 hours a day, by curious or malicious people, and understanding what is available so that we can take appropriate actions to defend them.
I have two clarifying questions right off the bat. Tell me what a drive-by download is.
Yeah, so the way we interact with the outside world is primarily through either email or through internet browsers. And if you think about what a web page is it's just code that your browser is executing to display the web page on your device. Sometimes that code can be configured to place files on your computer above and beyond the normal stuff like cookies or streaming video or other types of things that we need to be able to view that web page. They can place things that can be executed, things that can be used to exploit 0 days or other vulnerabilities in the browser itself, and then essentially a zero-click execution of malicious code. So the act of visiting the web page can be enough to execute dangerous things on your computer.
Oh gosh, Kyle, one thing that I see a lot when I'm talking to advisors is that there seems to be a kind of perhaps misunderstanding of as long as I don't click on any sketchy links on my email, then I'm safe, right? You just taught me something in a drive-by download situation. Even just visiting a website that might have malicious information on it can potentially put you at risk. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yep. Yep. So that's one of the two or three largest avenues would be certainly email is going to be the top portion. Then we're going to be looking at a race between unsecured cloud resources, whether it be cloud-based systems like M365 or like Salesforce or other types of things, or malicious content coming in through internet browsing over just normal websites.
And I'm sure if any of us saw a fraction of what you've seen over the course of your career, our hair would curl. I'm curious then, talking everyday security threats, tell me a little bit about your annual compliance must-haves. So pairing what we see on the day in and day out, what is something that is has to have or has to be, in place for
Yep.
RIAs, for wealth management firms.
So I would say that just right from the top, and the biggest thing that we focus in on first for the registered investment advisors or the wealth management firms that we work with is establishing that base. And that base is really your core policies. And from our perspective, the elements of this, these can be combined or three separate documents, the way that we see it most normally in most wealth management firms, that information security policy, the overarching plan for protecting data for both the firm and clients. We also see business continuity plans. So how are we going to survive the interruption of a technology within the firm, whether it be hosted by an outside provider or something internal to our firm, or a cloud-based outage or internet outage or a location failure, those types of things. And then the third document that we see is incident response plan. So what do we do in the event of a cybersecurity breach of data or a security incident, and walking through this. And yes, if as part of our engagement around secure audit, secure compliance, these are the very first things that we straighten out and make sure that are in a good spot. We either will fix or make sure that we're covering the appropriate elements in policies that already exist, fix if necessary, or create from scratch if needed. But we need to have this base because this is going to be the very foundation that us setting up our cybersecurity program or the regulators are going to look at. And then we need to trust but verify. We need to make sure that what we say we're doing in policy, we are actually doing. And so from a information security plan or information security policy side of things, we list a number of controls that are in place to protect both firm data and client data. Things like how we manage local administrative rights for all of our devices, how we manage and provide patches or fix vulnerabilities on those devices, and the frequency that we do that. Key required technical controls like screensaver timeouts and requiring a password to log in, how we manage usernames and passwords. Just generally, how do we protect all of our stuff within our environment? Both from what are we doing to protect all of our people, but also what are we expecting all of our people to do to protect data for the firm and for our clients, because it's not just technical controls. This is everybody at the firm on top of technical controls and that whole controls environment. So we verify, first of all, we establish what are reasonable for controls, both for employees and for those technical controls. And then periodically throughout the year, we reassess to make sure that nothing broke along the way, nothing has changed, so that we verify that those things that we think are still protecting us are actually still protecting us. We also start getting into incident response tabletop testing and business continuity tabletop testing. So we do this at least annually, and in some cases quarterly for with some firms based on their appetite for improvement, and making sure that since they haven't done this for either ever or for a number of years, that we are building up that muscle around these activities. And what we do in it, like an incident response tabletop test, we get the appropriate leadership from the organization. This isn't just IT, this isn't just compliance. We want to make sure that we have, if there's internal legal, if there is internal compliance, if there is internal risk management, chief compliance officer, or other business leaders within the firm that would be involved if there was a breach of data. We include that in this conversation, and then we present a scenario. One of the most recent ones that we did with a client was a malicious insider maliciously changing client data inside of their CRM, and then extracting data to take it with them to do other things out of that same CRM. And so we talk through these types of scenarios. We walk through it. We lay out all the different pitfalls, all of the different items. We talk through thresholds for notification around breach notification, because there are 40 something different breach notification laws across our 50 states. And then we also have
Okay.
Canada, we have Mexico, we may or may not have the European Union with GDPR notification requirements, and talking through all of that, and realizing that cybersecurity insurance carriers and breach attorneys and forensics all play a part of this. So we talk through all of that. Same thing with BCP. We talk through your horrible, no good, awful day of technology broadly not working the way that you expect it to be working, um, and how we're going to overcome it, what those alternate processing capabilities we have. Maybe it's going directly to the custodians to do work on behalf of our clients. Maybe we have different ways of accessing that data through supporting systems instead of the primary system. Maybe we just can't do certain work. Maybe work needs to be delayed. Maybe we need to communicate to our clients. But talking through all of those so that we can validate that we have a plan of action should this type of a scenario occur. We're documenting the things we don't know and chasing those down as lessons learned that we can present to leadership. And then we're going to rinse and repeat, and we're going to go through that again. And until we get comfortable with, hey, we do have a well-vetted plan for both of these different goals. And then we will start moving towards an annual cycle, because this is something that is expected to be completed on an annual basis. The one thing that isn't mentioned there, above and beyond tabletop, is we also want to verify that the things that are getting backed up, we can actually restore them and recover technically. So we want to validate that as well.
Kyle, I've got a bunch of people asking questions, especially surrounding these annual compliance must-haves. So I think this is a hot topic I want to spend some time on. I'll take the first one though. In terms of advisory and how we can help with this, we are able to review, make suggestions, and edits to any policies that our clients have. This can't necessarily be done as an a la carte service, as we aren't auditors in that sense of the word, but we do work with our clients and sit in on those SEC audits that come through as well. I have a couple questions for you, Kyle, and two of them are a little bit related. But first and foremost, you mentioned, drive-by downloads. That was a popular conversation. How would you protect against browsing risks? And in that same vein, do you recommend a VPN at all?
So I think that's multiple questions. So let's tackle the first one first here. How do we protect against drive-by download? So first of all, keeping things up to date, primarily the browsers, those become that first line of defense on the endpoints. And we're very fortunate that things like Google Chrome or Microsoft Edge are either updated automatically or updated with Windows updates. But making sure that we have a plan in place for keeping the browsers up to date would be key. Along with, we have two options around malicious code execution along with content filtering. So first of all, content filtering, we want to make sure that we're blocking access to dangerous categories of websites. The top dangerous categories, obviously there's the malicious and known malicious category within content filtering. So what we can access out on the internet. So websites that belong to that, we should be blocking it. But then also newly registered or parked domains, those are very often used to seed malicious content. So we want to make sure we're blocking those through our content filter. And then I would always recommend blocking ads. We've just seen a constant onslaught of malicious content coming through ad networks, unintentionally or intentionally, but it's just been used over and over again to seed bad things into client environments. So if we can just stop people from being able to either access or being able to click on anything in those categories, we are much further ahead. Once something gets onto the endpoint, then we are depending on one of two options. The first being EDR, so endpoint detection and response. This is what we call antivirus now, as antivirus grew up and became more complex and able to help us out against more advanced threats. We started calling it a new name because that's what IT people do. We take something that we know and then we turn it into something new. The other thing that we recommend is looking at application allow listing. And so this would be defining the list of known good things that are allowed to execute on your computer, and then inherently blocking everything else. If it's not on the list of what can execute, it just can't execute. So if you want to think of I have all the bad over here, and that list is infinitely changing and growing and getting bigger and almost impossible to manage. Well, we
Mm.
can't create a list of all the bad things because it's constantly changing. We would never keep up. Or we could create a list of known good things, and that list is much smaller. And if we maintain that list of things that we know should and can execute in our environment and only allow that, well, that seems like that'd be a much more reasonable list of things to maintain. And so it is. It's not without pain. It can cause frustrations at times, but it's definitely the preferred approach above and beyond EDR for preventing malicious code from anywhere executing on your endpoint.
And I think that's a really important point, especially tying back to what we have on the slide here and the verifying the effectiveness of that, right? So if you have controls put on for all of the bad things, are you actively checking to make sure all of the bad things are continually updating, and or the good things, right? To really just take a step back and look from a third party perspective. Am I actually doing everything that I'm saying I'm doing? And am I actually doing everything in the right way? I think that's huge. Um, I want to keep on trucking here a little bit. In terms of testing readiness and the tabletop exercises you mentioned on the last slide. So give me a little bit more information on what is that? What does that mean for a firm?
Yeah, so again, we're going to simulate those scenarios. We're going to work with the teams to understand what is the biggest risk or what's the biggest concern right now for the firm from a security incident and from a technology outage perspective. And we're going to, again, recruit leadership from within the organization beings. So far, we've been very lucky that every firm that we have worked with in one of these scenarios that we have gone through has had very active participation. these types of tabletop tests are very dry and boring if it's just me talking. So we always encourage active participation. We guide the conversation, we lay out the scenario, we lay out what we're trying to accomplish by getting together here. And then that conversation starts flowing internally and we start talking about questions and processes and how would we handle this, or have we thought about this, or this is what banks are doing now as a good reference point because they typically are a lot more mature than wealth management firms, or this is what some of our other wealth management firms are doing that we would consider best of breed on tackling these types of scenarios. um, all this to be said, we always preface this. We are not trying to change operations. We are not trying to change processes. We don't recommend knee-jerk responses, but let's consider anything that come out for possible inclusion on improving our processes. We don't want to just slam all kinds of changes as a result of these scenarios that we go through, but very oftentimes these do lead to changes within the organization. We would just recommend that they're thoughtfully rolled out because change is hard, and we want to make sure that we're not breaking the ability for the business to serve the clients.
I love the idea of, I think this is a infamous Kyle quote, right? You don't want to be testing your fire alarm when you smell smoke, right? So I think it's important that these tabletop scenarios really show weak points, and then rather than, like you said, knee-jerk reacting to fixing things, you really can take a step back and say, okay, what is a priority here? What are we actually missing? Are we just rusty, etc.?
Agreed. This is muscle memory. So if you want to think of it in terms of a boxing match, well, unless you've been through those sparring matches and gone through some training, you wouldn't hope to ever be successful in the real event. And so this is building up that muscle memory, giving confidence that, hey, we've been here, we've done that, we've overcome this before, we already have walked through this scenario, and we're ready for when the real event should occur.
And again, like we've been saying, not just having the process in place, but also executing and following
Yes.
through using the tools that you have.
An untested plan isn't a plan, right? It's just
Yeah,
hope.
absolutely. Well said. One other question, maybe is slightly off topic, but I did have somebody pop in and ask about password managers. Do you have any recommendations on those while I flip to our next slide here?
So there's a number of top tier password managers off the top of my head, LastPass, OnePass, anything like that tier of password manager would be great. We would recommend staying away from password managers that are managed by the browser itself that aren't plugin based. So Google Chrome password manager, the Edge password manager, I would recommend staying away from those just because of the new category of drive-by downloads and the new category of those malicious code type things that we call info stealers are designed to steal secrets out of browsers. And it's a bit more safe when there is a password vault plugin rather than trusting Chrome or Edge itself to maintain those passwords.
You are full of good insights. So give me another hot take. Give me a tip number one. How do you make your compliance routine?
Well, I think it starts with a plan, right? Because we can't just make it up as we go along. We need to make sure that we are covering certain elements, meeting those expectations of the SEC, meeting those expectations if we have to comply to State of New York's Department of Financial Services, CRR 500, that compliance side of things, or really whatever compliance regimes that we need to make sure that we are complying with. We need to start with a plan, and it needs to be ticking those boxes for those expectations and kind of those universal expectations of a cybersecurity plan in a wealth management firm that we have created, and we have found after multiple clients of ours have gone through SEC exams over the course of 2025 is having that base, having the information security policy, having the BCP plan, having the incident response plan, and then also validating through controls reviews that everything we think is in place is actually in place. Because one of the things that auditors and examiners look for is, did you say you were doing something, and are you doing that thing you said you were doing?
Mm.
We also want to validate, again, move beyond hope into knowing around BCP, around business continuity. Again, testing but validating the incident response plan through tabletop testing. We also need to get a very good handle around our cloud-based systems and making sure that they are properly secured. We also need to make sure we're managing employee identities appropriately. So making sure that we don't have any terminated or expired or separated employees um, still hanging out there in our systems. Now, this generally isn't a problem with things like Microsoft 365, Entra, SharePoint, OneDrive, all of those things. The parts that we see that get forgotten the most often are those disconnected systems, those systems that are still critical in supporting the infrastructure, but they're not integrated into single sign-on or not integrated in with that Microsoft identity. And they may not be a core system, they may be a supporting system, but those are the items that those systems typically get forgotten about when an employee separates from the firm. And then we also have expectations around vendor management, making sure we're managing those third-party relationships appropriately. Um, we don't generally see questions from the SEC around cybersecurity insurance renewal, but we know that's a big part of managing risk for wealth management firms. So we make sure that we are reviewing that where appropriate and positioning the firms that we work with for the best possible rates and the best possible coverage. We also move beyond just things like social engineering testing with KnowBe4 or something like that. We do annual information security training so that we are communicating what those expectations are for all of our employees in that information security policy and what they can do to help protect both firm data and client data. And then we also look at data loss prevention and make sure that the systems are designed appropriately according to the level of licensing that they have to prevent accidental disclosure of client data in clear text, making sure that things are sent securely and sent to the appropriate individual and putting those guardrails in place wherever we can.
Think that goes straight into my next slide, which I am very passionate about, employee training as a first defense. So you've got everything laid out. Tell me a little bit about Kyle's tip number 2, employee training.
Okay, well, first of all, let me say that if one employee clicking on something can ruin your entire network with ransomware or whatever, your network sucks. So let's not be there. But we also need everybody to be helping us out. We need everybody to have an awareness around protecting client data and firm data. Um, I prefer to create that culture within firms and making sure that it's always okay to tell somebody that I may have done the wrong thing and that we are not punitive. We're not punishing people. We're not encouraging people to keep secrets around this type of thing because sometimes things do get through email, through all of our controls, through all of our filters. They still get to the inbox, whether it be an attachment that's malicious, whether it be a link that's malicious, whether it be something trying to collect credentials, get people to disclose their username and password. That stuff still gets through. And so I believe in creating that culture around supporting people and making sure that it's a safe place to report that and encouraging people that, hey, even if you took action, even if you thought it was legitimate at the time, but now you have a funny feeling in the pit of your stomach and think, what did I just do? That didn't seem right, still supporting them and creating those channels that they can use to report those types of things. Because this is a race condition, right? Speed wins, both from the adversary, but also from the defender.
Mm.
This isn't instant, we broke everything. the bad guys need to jump through hoops to get to that disaster moment. So if we can respond and take care of something faster than they can take advantage of it, we still win, even if maybe a bad action occurred.
Wow, I think that's super powerful stuff. I wish I could keep you in my pocket all the time. Um, Tip number three, then, posture scores as KPIs. As we were looking through this, I'm really curious. Give me a bit more information on what you mean by this.
So I think there's a couple things. First of all, keeping that scorecard of knowing that first of all, what are all of our assets and are all of our security controls enforced and working on all those assets? I think that that's a great visibility to know, are things happening? Are are if it's not advisory or if it's our internal IT or if it's an external partner, whoever it is, making sure that we have at least a baseline to the security controls and knowing that they are actually still working across all of our assets. I think that's a very powerful knowing where we're at. The other piece of this, the second item, is measuring against the expectations from the SEC. And this is where we use our online platform to guide us through the assessment with the firms we work with. And we give them just, this is the scoring number, a 1 through 10 scoring. And a lot of the firms that we are onboarding into our platform that we're working with on this advisory capacity through secure compliance and secure audit, um, on a 1 through 10 score, they're in the fives or the low or the high fours. And when we look at a fairly mature or well-performing wealth management firms, they're typically in the high sevens to low nines as far as a score. And I realize that this is an arbitrary score that we assign to them, but it is very reflective into the maturity of the security controls, the policies, the procedures, all of the stuff that make up a cyber secure, resilient wealth management firm. And that's what we're trying to do, drive that resiliency, drive that maturity, and measuring that over time so we can show those improvements.
Man, if you can really put to paper and show progress too, I can imagine how much that bolsters the confidence as a company in your responses and your preparation for cyber issues.
And we've also seen firms where things have stalled, where we've been
Mm.
pushing for changes and working on implementing new controls and rolling those out. And for one reason or another, typically internal to the firm, those efforts just stall. And it really highlights that maybe they just aren't interested in improving their cybersecurity posture. And maybe we aren't a good fit because our goal is to reduce risk. Obviously, we can't remove all cybersecurity risk, but there is a large amount that we can minimize or mitigate through proper hygiene and controls. And um, yeah, it may just highlight that there is a challenge within the organization itself.
I really love the idea of taking a measuring stick to something that's important, right? Be it your regular KPIs and bringing on new clients or your KPIs and particular growth markers. Those are just as important as KPIs and the growth of security. So I really love this tip. I think it's a unique stance. Next thing I want to ask you about is security posture dashboard, that score we talked about, and how Visory is able to assign one to clients that we're working with. Give me a little bit of information about your tip here.
Yeah, so I might be repeating myself, so I probably got ahead of myself on the last slide there, Claudia. But really,
Keep
this
it
is
short
just
and
a
sweet.
reflective of where we're at against those expectations. We've aligned the framework against the SEC expectations or against the Department of Financial Services for the state of New York or NIST CSF or all of them. We can align multiple frameworks against this, and we're using that as our measuring stick and really providing the point in time. This is where we're at right now. The other thing with this scoring through this dashboard is as we work to mature client environments and are updating the control structure and all those different things within the portal, this is updated in near real time. So we can see those improvements. We can trend that over time and show the progress of where we're making improvements in the environment, where we're reducing that risk in the particular areas.
Awesome. I'm just loving this webinar, honestly. I'm taking a ton away. So tell me then, everybody's favorite three-letter word, the SEC. What about exam prep year round, or how do you stay audit ready?
Yeah, so again, it's more of the same. It's making sure that, first of all, we have those solid three policies or those areas of policy covered. The information security policy, the BCP, and the incident response plan, making sure we have those documented and that we are doing what we say we're doing in those policies. And we have been trusting and verifying, making sure that we are doing those tabletop testing, that we are reviewing periodically throughout the year, that our controls are functioning as designed. And then some of those other items, those user access reviews, those cloud security reviews, doing all of the training and vulnerability management, vendor management, all those things that we've been discussing. Making sure that we're doing those activities every calendar year. This is an expectation where we have certain things that need to be accomplished throughout the course of the year. And the way we lay out our program, we have certain items that we want to address in quarter one, and quarter two, quarter three, quarter four, and just kind of slicing the year into four equally chunks of pie and dealing with those as we get to them and making sure that we are saving that supporting evidence along the way.
Okay, I have a question, and I hope you don't think I'm hurrying you along, but I'm really curious about the conversation around cloud and data risks. Everything is cloud-based now. My iPhone photos are cloud-based. My emails, of course, are cloud-based. But how do we keep mitigating risks when things are tied so closely, especially data?
So a couple of things that we have in our advantage. So we have the ability to control access, and we do have the ability to control identity within cloud-based systems. So if we can reduce our attack surface in both of those fronts, we are more set up to reduce risk for both our firm and for our client data. So what I mean by that is for all those SaaS applications or cloud-based apps, if we can control where they can be accessed from,
Mm.
then we can eliminate giant chunks of the internet that we don't have to protect things against. Things like geolocation policies. So, can it be accessed only from within the United States versus the rest of the world? Well, that's less that we have to protect it against then. We may be able to limit it to only being accessed from our company network. Maybe we are able to use a VPN like Harmony SASE, force everybody to come out of the same spot on the internet. So the first barrier to entry is you connect to the Harmony client and log in. It directs all of your traffic to a specific spot on the internet, and then your cloud-based applications can only be accessed from that one spot where the Harmony client is directing traffic through. Now we've just eliminated a giant swath of the internet along with most of the United States and are controlling that access layer much better. And we can really start reducing the risks of, hey, it just isn't able to be logged into from if you're not on the VPN, not on the Harmony client. The other thing we have in our favor is identity. And so making sure that where we can integrate that identity into our Microsoft identity, applying those conditional access rules, those rules for how somebody can connect. Um, we can limit it down to only company devices that we are managing and that are enrolled within our system, along with other rules. So other geolocation rules, other time-based parameters, and other health check type items that we can enforce through identity controls. So we do have the ability generally with most cloud-based systems to control access and control identity. I think those are critical to making sure that we are properly securing all of those cloud-based systems, especially since they are available at all times to be able to be poked and prodded at by anybody.
I love that approach too, because it feels very overwhelming to go, how do I protect the whole cloud versus how do I protect what's controllable for my environment?
Yep, working with what's known.
Yeah, absolutely. Tell me a little bit. We've talked briefly about compliance. Let's bring it back up. So, external drivers for compliance. I talk about this a lot, but I want to hear your take on things too.
Well, from a compliance side of things. So let's just talk about data security maybe as a whole. So it's maybe less compliance because when you start talking about cybersecurity insurance renewals, they're talking about data security and risk management. They're not going to worry you if you're not a safe risk for them. And so properly managing the firm data and client data, protecting that appropriately, meeting their expectations makes you a better risk. It also means that you're a less risky person for the bad guys to try and take advantage of. So by reducing risk and managing it appropriately, you also become a better bet for the cybersecurity insurance carriers. And the better bet you are for them to not have an incident, the better rates you get, the better premiums you get to pay versus others. You get lower deductibles. You get higher limits or sublimits around breach notification, those types of things. So it is a risk versus reward in the truest sense from the insurance uh, carriers and brokers. They are very good at measuring risk. And I mean, we've known actuaries and those types of individuals within the insurance field for forever. I mean,
Mhm.
they are trained to use numbers to drive their business. And if you're on the wrong side, you're going to pay more. And so
Don't be on the wrong side.
don't be on the wrong side. We also, as wealth management firms, we deal in trust. We think we deal in money and wealth, but we deal in trust. We would not have any clients if they did not trust us to keep their private data and their money and all of that safe. And that trust is key to us existing as a firm. Once we lose that trust, we're out of business. And so part of that trust is properly protecting things, making sure that we have controls in place, that they can, that the money that they have with us is safe, that their client data or anything else that could be manipulated to get access to that money, that that is safe, that we are taking things seriously and properly protecting all of the data that they have given us.
I, I could not emphasize that enough more. We deal in trust. Even if you're not a wealth manager, even if you sell cybersecurity, right?
Yeah.
Um, Looks like my slide got a little bit wonky here, but tell me a little bit from compliance to continuous maturity. That word keeps coming up, and I think it perhaps is the theme of our webinar here today. Continuous growth, continuous maturity, continuous compliance.
Yeah. So when we start an engagement, we go through that initial audit. We go through that gap assessment and understand what is the current playing field that we're at and the state of the environment. Once we get out of that, we've transitioned into secure compliance, and that's that continuous maturity. And so we use what we learned through that gap assessment to be able to prioritize those improvements. We look for those larger areas of risk that we can tackle first, and we help drive those out of the organization. That might be something as easy as properly securing the M365 environment, making sure that conditional access policies or that multi-factor authentication is installed and configured for every single person. Help deploying password managers, making sure that we are properly protecting our cloud-based applications. Maybe in some firms we find out that we think a lot of security controls are protecting us, but they really aren't. And so shoring up the control structure and making sure that it matches up with expectation. Um, I know I mentioned that up front, but it is something that we see quite often. We think that things are protecting us, but we've lost track of the knowing that things are protecting us. And so
Mhm.
we need to trust, but we need to verify. And we need to do that periodically, whether it's through a scorecard and a KPI driven indicator, or on a quarterly approach, or on a frequency that matches your tolerance for risk. But we do need to verify that just because something was working a month ago, that it is still working now. And then as we transition into our second year and third year of working through this service with our clients, we continue to take a deeper look, another layer deeper in the onion. We want to just keep on identifying and surfacing that next layer of risk within the organization. And I'm not a big fan of no risk because then we wouldn't be in business, but making sure that we're managing risk appropriately for our firm. And that's something that we generally work with the chief compliance officer or other leadership within the wealth management firm to establish, is this acceptable, or do we need to have a strategy for dealing with this risk?
Well, I think that'll speak directly to the wealth managers on the call, right? Risk is a little bit of their job always. Um, Whoops, I went the wrong way. Give me an example of a case study. I know we talked about this a little bit before, but could you put into perspective a real life company you've worked with?
Well, I think it's really hard. I know we added avoided ransomware impact, but I think it's really hard to talk about the incident that didn't occur, because did it not occur last week or did it not occur this week? We don't really know. But what we do know is we've assisted other wealth management firms throughout the course of 2025, um, in court with the SEC as they've come in for their examinations and reviewing their IT side, reviewing their operation side. We get less into the operation side, more on the IT side. Uh, we've had very good feedback from the SEC. We've had so far no fun in how we structure our cybersecurity programs for wealth management firms. And I think that that is really telling that we're not trying to do too much here. We are focused in specifically around what is needed for our industry and maintaining trust from our clients. We also have helped other firms with getting lower rates on their cybersecurity insurance renewals, or being able to keep the same rates in the environment where we find ourselves, where premiums are increasing year over year. We were able to assist with driving risk out of the environment and getting no rate increase for the renewal.
I mean, goodness, if that's not a win, I don't know what is. Unfortunately, no price increase sounds pretty tasty to me. Um, I see somebody just asked if we'll be able to download this presentation. Yes, it will be sent out to all of you after this is concluded. But Kyle, give me a quick win compliance checklist. This is a great screenshotable slide, I think, for the folks watching us today.
Yeah, I think it all centers around having a plan. And I think earlier in the slide deck, if people, once they look at it, want to refer back to, I think, slide number 8, we don't need to go there, but that really lays out a lot of what we're looking at on a quarterly versus annual side of things, making it so that you're approaching it throughout the course of the year. You don't have to do everything all at once, but you do need to have a plan for those key elements of your cybersecurity plan. And then making sure that we are trust but verify, making sure we are validating both that those controls that we think are in place are actually in place and working effectively. And then on top of that, we need to do certain leadership type tabletop tests around incident response, business continuity testing. We also need to make sure that our attack surface area, so all those things that a bad guy can use to take advantage and manipulate our systems, that we're managing risk appropriately around that. So things that are in the cloud, our SaaS-based applications, our cloud-based applications, and then our employees' devices, making sure we're managing all that appropriately, along with the identities that we all use for logging in. Again, we want to focus in on how do we reduce that attack surface? How do we protect less stuff better? and set you up for success. We want to do this in a scalable way. We don't want infinite things to protect against. We want a limited things to protect against. And then making sure we're documenting this because the SEC is going to look for evidence that we actually did do things like a user access review, that we actually did a tabletop test around the incident response plan, that we actually did a tabletop test around business continuity, that we have tested our ability to recover data or files, and making sure that the appropriate items are getting in the meeting minutes for a leadership committee within the organization.
Gosh, I mean, I feel like all of this has really shed a lot of light, at least personally, onto some of these issues that we talk about day in and day out. I have a question for the audience, Kyle, if you don't mind.
Go for it.
Guys, how confident are you that your compliance solutioning will hold up to the aftermath of a breach? I'm going to send this out again. Sorry, it might have relaunched earlier, so let me know when you can see it. Looks like it's out now. But I'm curious on that confidence level, where you guys sit when it comes to what would happen if there was a breach. Kyle, how confident are you?
I'm confident.
I would hope so. Just a few more folks trickling in, and then I have one question for the end, Jason. I haven't forgotten you. I'll get to you in a minute here. I think just one or two more folks to answer. All right, I think we will stop it there. So it looks like everybody kind of ended up mostly in the middle, somewhat confident. So systems are in place, but maybe haven't been tested, haven't been doing that tabletop analysis or a KPI-based review of what their systems look like. Does that surprise you, Kyle?
No, not from what we've seen working with wealth management firms. So I think for me, that probably is more telling than anything else throughout this talk
Mm.
we've had today is just how do we move beyond thinking things are in place to knowing things are in place? How do we get into a spot where we know that we're managing risk appropriately?
So last point before we start wrapping this guy up, your growth plan isn't complete without compliance. We work with a lot of folks that are looking to grow their firm, maybe merge, maybe acquire. Tell me a little bit about how compliance and growth fit together.
Yeah, no problem. So we work with firms where they're either um, what's the opposite of merge, separating from other firms,
Mhm.
or we work with aggregators where they are acquiring, are very much on an acquisition spree and adding additional firms into their banner of their firm. Um, Truing that up across firms or setting it up from scratch if suddenly you find yourself as a standalone company can be difficult, and making sure that we have a process in place to scale this program that we've been talking about across whatever may occur, whether it's adding new employees, whether it's targeted acquisitions where you're lifting out teams from existing wealth management firms, whether it's acquiring additional firms, or whether it's just organic growth. Making sure that the plan is complete and it's communicated to all of our employees, and that we're able to measure and know that our controls are in place across all of our devices. I think it's just imperative that we are good stewards of protecting both the firm data and the client data.
I think that is a fantastic place to end it, Kyle. You have been so wonderful. I have one question that popped up in the chat about email addresses and why would you continue to receive an email from an address that's already been blocked? Any idea without knowing background?
So I would say that'd be a technical question. There's nothing I have as far as an easy answer around that. I would want to know the details around that particular incident. If you are a client, you should be able to turn in a support ticket, and we'd have our team be able to investigate. Everything happens for a reason, and we should be able to uncover that reason for you.
Awesome. And if you are not a client, feel free to reach out and I'm happy to change that for you guys. As always, here is our giveaway, if you will. Wow, my slides are going crazy today. A little bit of a resource guide that we share with all potential clients as well as just into the general community. And finally, a thank you from myself and Kyle. You have been a delight to have on the past 3 webinars. Thank you for imparting your wisdom on us. If you're looking to become a Visory client, go ahead and scan that QR code, book a consultation with me. We will get you going. And like we said before, happy holidays to everybody. Thanks so much for sharing your time with us. That is right on the nose, 1 hour.
You're awesome, Claudia.
Thanks, Kyle. Talk to you later. Bye,
Bye.
guys. Take care.